हेलो फ्रेंड्स एंड वेलकम टू माय चैनल। और आज की इस वीडियो में हम पढ़ने वाले हैं डीप वाटर रिटन बाय विलियम डॉगलस। इट had happened when I was 10 or 11 years old. 10. It had happened when I was 10 or 11 years old. I had decided to learn to swim. There was a pool at the YMCA in Yakima that offered exactly the opportunity. The Yakima River was treacherous. Mother continually warned against it and kept fresh in my mind the details of each drowning in the river. But the YMCA pool was safe. It was only 2 or 3 feet deep at the shallow end, and while it was 9 feet deep on the other end. The drop was gradual. I got a pair of water wings and went to the pool. I hated to walk naked into it and show my skinny legs, but I subdued my pride and did it. From the beginning, however, I had an aversion to the water when I was in it. This started when I was 3 or 4 years old. Father took me to the beach in California. He and I stood together in the surf. I hung on him yet the waves knocked me down and swept over me. I was buried in water, my breath was gone. I was frightened, father laughed, but there was terror in my heart at the overpowering force of the waves. My introduction to the YMCA swimming pool revived unpleasant memories and stirred childish fears, but in a while I gathered confidence. I paddled with my new water wings, watching the boys and trying to learn by apping them. I did this 2 or 3 times on different days and was just beginning to feel at ease in the water and the misadventure happened. I went to the pool and no one else was there. The place was quiet, the water was still and the tiled bottom as white as clean as bathtub. I was timid about going in alone, so I sat on the side of the pool and waited for hours. I had not been there long when I came a big bruiser of a boy, probably 18 years old. He had thick hair on his chest. He was beautiful physical specimen with legs and arms that showed rippling muscles he yelled, "Hi skinny, how do you like to be ducked?" With that he with that he picked me up, tossed me into the deep end, and I landed in sitting position, swallowed water and went once to the bottom. I was frightened but not yet frightened out of my wits. On the way down I planned when my feet hit the bottom I would make a big jump, come to the surface, lie flat on it and pedaled to the edge of the pool. It seemed a long way down. Those 9 feet felt more than 90, and before I touched the bottom of my lungs were ready to burst. But when my feet hit the bottom, I summoned all my strength and made what I thought a great spring upwards. I imagined I would bob to the surface like a cork. Instead, I came up only. I came up slowly. I opened my eyes and saw nothing but water, water that had a dirty yellow tinge on it. I grew panicky. I reached up as if to grab a rope, and my hands clutched only at water. I was suffocating. I tried to yell, but no sound came out. Then my eyes and nose came out of water, but not mouth. I failed at the surface of water, swallowed and choked. I tried to bring my legs up, but they were hung as dead weights, paralyzed and rigid. A great force was pulling me under. I screamed, but only the water heard me. I had started on the long journey back to the bottom of the pool. I struck at the water and I went down, expending my strength as one in nightmare fights an irresistible force. I had lost all my breath, my lungs ached, my head throbbed. I was getting dizzy, but I remembered the strategy. I would spring from the bottom of the pool and come like a cock to the surface. I would lie flat on the water, strike out with my arms, and thrash with my legs. Then I would get edge to the pool and be safe. I went down, endlessly. I opened my arms, nothing but water with a yellow glow, dark water one could not see through. And then sheer stark terror seized me, terror that knows no understanding, terror that knows no control, terror that no one can understand who has not experienced. I was shaking underwater. I was paralyzed underwater, stiff rigid with fear. Even the screams in my throat was frozen. Only my heart and the pounding in my head said that I was still alive. And then In the midst of terror came touch of reason. I must remember to jump. When I hit the bottom at last, I felt tiles under me. My toes reached out as if to grab them. I jumped with everything I had. The jump made no difference. The water was still around me. I looked for ropes, ladders, water rings, nothing but water. A mass of yellow water held me stuck terror even deeper. Deeper hold on me like a great charge of electricity. I shook and trembled with fright. My arms wouldn't move, my legs wouldn't move. I tried to call for help, to call for mother. Nothing happened, and then strangely there was light. I was coming out of awful yellow water. My nose was almost out too. Then I started down a third time. I stopped for air and got water. The yellowish light was going out. Then all effort ceased. I relaxed. Even my legs felt limp, and a blackless swept my brain. It wiped out fear, it wiped out terror. There was no more panic. It was quiet and peaceful. Nothing to be afraid of. This is nice to be drowsy, to go to sleep. No need to jump, too tired to jump. It's nice to be carried gently, to float along in space. Tender arms around me, tender arms like mothers now. I must go to sleep. I crossed to oblivion, and the curtain of life fell. The next I remembered, I was lying on my stomach beside the pool, vomiting. The chap that threw in me was saying, but I was only fooling. Someone said the kid nearly died. Be all right now. Let's carry him to the locker room. Several hours later, I walked home. I was weak and trembling. I shook and cried. When I lay on my bed, I couldn't eat that night for a day's haunting. Fear was in my heart. The slightest exertion upset me, making me wobbly in the knees and sick to my stomach. I never went back to the pool. I feared water. I avoided it whenever I could. A few years later, when I came to know the waters of the cascades, I wanted to get into them, and whenever I did, whether I was wading at the Tieton or bumping river or bathing in warm lake of the goat rocks, the terror that had seized me in the pool would come back. I would take possession of me completely. My legs would become paralyzed. Icy horror would grab my heart. This handicap stayed with me as the years rolled by. The canoes of main lakes, fishing for landlocked salmon, bass fishing in New Hampshire, trout fishing in Deschutes and Metolius in Oregon, fishing for salmon in Colombia, and at the Bumping Lake in the Cascades. Whenever I want, the haunting fear of the water followed me. It ruined my fishing trips, deprived me of the joy of canoeing, boating, and swimming. I used every way I knew to overcome this fear, but it held me firmly in the grip. Finally, on October, I decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. I went to a pool and practiced 5 days a week, an hour each day. The instructor put a belt around me, a rope attached a rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran over the rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable. He held on to the end of the rope, and we went back and forth across the pool, hour and hour, day after day, week after week. On each trip across the pool, a bit of the panic seized me. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold and the rope, and I went, and the sum of the old terror returned, and my legs froze. It was 3 months before the tension began to slack. Then he taught me to put my face under water and exhale and raise my nose and inhale. I repeated the exercise hundreds of times, bit by bit. I shed part of the panic that seized me when my head went underwater. Next, he held me at the side of the pool and had me kick with my legs for weeks. I did just that. At my first, my legs refused to work, but they gradually relaxed, and finally I could command them. Thus, piece by piece, he built a swimmer, and when he had perfected each piece, he put them together into an integrated whole. In April, he said, "Now you can swim, dive up, swim the length of the pool, crawl, stroke." I did. The instructor was finished, but I was not finished. I still wondered if I would be terror stricken when I was alone in the pool. I tried it. I swam the length up and down. Tiny vestiges of the old terror would return, but now I could frown and say to the trying to scare me. Well, to look. Here's to you look. And off I would go for another length of the pool. This went until July, but I was not satisfied. I was not sure that all the terror had left, so I went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire, dived off at the Dog Creek Island, and swam to 2 miles across the Lake Stamp Act Island. I swam the crawl, breaststroke, side stroke, backstroke. Once did the terror return. When I was in the middle of the lake, I put my face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. The old sensation returned in miniature. I laughed and said, "Well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me?" It fled and I swam on. Yet I had residual doubts. At my first opportunity, I hurried west, went up to the Teton to Coronant Meadows, up to the Conrad Creek Trail to Mead Glacier, and camped in the high meadow by the side of Worm Lake. The next morning, I strip dived into the lake and swam across the other shore and back, just as Doug Corpon used to do. I shouted with joy, and Gilbert Peak returned with the echo. I had conquered the fear of water. The experience had a deep meaning for me, as only those who have known stark terror and conquered it can appreciate. In death, there is peace. There is terror only in fear of death, as Roosevelt knew when he said, "All we have to fear is fear itself, because it experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that faced it can produce. The will to the will to live somehow grew in instantly intensity. At last, I felt released, free to walk the trails and climb the peaks and to brush aside fear."